And as a child, my earliest recollection was hearing owls, and the Forest of Galters was renowned for owls, apparently, whereas there's none of the forest left, but the owls have remained. So we were called York Without, which was without the walls.
That's rather nice. York Without.
Yes, I love it still. I was back there just recently, and they've done most beautiful things to the city. And my mother was the most incredible collector of things about York and the history of York. There was nothing she didn't know about it. And so I knew all those tiny little alleyways throughout
The Shambles.
York. The Shambles and Mucky Peg's Alley and Bedden and Aldwork. And they're beautiful now. A lot of the houses have been restored. It's extremely beautiful. I do go back there as much as I can, Roy, because I have family still there. And it takes my breath away every time I go back. I realise how beautiful it is. I don't think, probably I realised that as much when I was a child. Yeah. But we were always taken, my father was a doctor, and on his day off, we used to go, sometimes a favourite thing was to go for a picnic up by Pickering on the moors and go across to Scarborough or Whitby. We'd go across to Scarborough for a swim. There was a wonderful place on the moors, which we called the Devil's Punchbowl. I don't think that was its real name, but I know that at the bottom of this immensely long hill is a pub where the fire is never meant to have gone out. It's always perpetuated in the grate. Yeah. And that, to me, as a child, was, everybody who was in the car was told this in great detail. And this place, the Devil's Punchbowl, which I can't think, as I say, that it was the most extraordinary valley. And the road, you just come off the road and suddenly this valley falls right away. There's a farm right down in the valley. And in fact, when Finty was very little and Michael and I were up there, we took her, and this tiny little baby, we held her in front of this view. And everything blew backwards. And poor Finty, she was introduced to it very young. But it's a lovely place and somewhere I'd always like to go back to. My first ambition was to be the owner of a fish shop.
Really?
Oh, rivetingly.
Why? I mean, it was the smell of fish.
No, it's the look of it. It's the feel and the look of it. And we used to live outside York in a place called Heworth. I told you, York Without. And under the Monk Bar, which we had to walk under to come from town, there was a fish shop. I don't expect it's still there now. But it was one of those fish shops where it's all marble and open, and water was running down. And the fish were all arranged in little circles, and the crabs and things like that. And very early on, I took some kippers from there.
You mean you stole?
Stole them. And my mother found out when we were in, you go straight back and take them back. It was a difficult thing to have to do, but it didn't cure me. I do love open fish shops. I love the look of it, and fish is such pretty colours, and especially when it's kept a bit damp. I mean, a herring under a bit of water looks so pretty, and place and the orange spots. And if you're lucky, a lobster or two. You don't see those much, but the prawns and everything. I love that, so I did want very much to have something to do with the fish.
But some people, of course, find the smell of fish offensive.
Yes, but I think it's the smell of bad fish that is offensive, not good fresh fish with the water running all the time.
Nice to see you.
I'd see that my shop had that. And I suspect that that when I was taken as a child to the York Theatre Royal and the curtain went up, I could smell, there's a certain smell that came over the footlights, which I imagine was a kind of little seed that dropped down, which later was to be something I would remember. Also, in York, they used to clean the theatre with something. I think Jay's fluid. And that smell, I used to love that smell and associate it with the theatre. And it wasn't till I came a long time later to Stratford with my parents, also before I thought of being an actress. There was a certain smell in the dress circle of the Memorial Theatre, as it was then at Stratford. Not the same smell as the Theatre Royal, but suddenly another smell that made me very excited. I've always associated it with Stratford, and I've always loved it.
Yes.
And I love those kind of things like, you know, the smell of real leather when you get into a car. Do you remember when you were a child and you burnt your car in the sun? You got into the car again and burnt the backs of your legs. But that wonderful smell of leather, I love that. And stationery, I'm very keen about that. New books. I love to smell the bindings of new books. And pencils, I like all those kind of smells. I like a stationery shop, you know, as well as a fish shop.